Welcome to Project Comedy, a podcast by and for military veterans doing stand-up comedy, turning military banter into quality stand-up comedy acts. We might be veterans, but our comedy aims to get everybody laughing. Will you just get to the point? I'm not having a go, just making a point. When people go and watch stand-up comedy, they want to laugh, not wait. Will you just get to the point? I'm not having a go, just making a point. When people go to watch stand-up, they want to laugh, not wait ages until you eventually say something funny. We've said this before in the podcast. Stand-up is not a conversation. It's a crafted performance to get your audience to laugh as many times as you can in the time you've been given. So it's all about punchlines. And the more punchlines you can get into a minute, the better. Sure, you can be a storyteller, political, have real-life examples. But if you make an audience wait too long for a punchline, you're going to lose them. They're here to have a laugh, not attend a book reading or a lecture. Look at the comedians with the most punchlines in their routines and you're probably looking at a one-liner comedian. And loads of them are epic. It doesn't mean you have to copy their style. But if you've got a few in your arsenal, it's not going to do any harm, is it? In fact, what if you could get a pre-planned laugh within 10 seconds of getting on the stage? You're not going to be able to do that with a story, are you? We Project Comedy ambassadors are never going to claim to be one-liner comedians, but we do appreciate them and use them within our sets. So maybe we want to experiment with them a little more. So I'm joined by Gabriel Zinger Murphy, Jamie Quickfire Johnson, and I'm Jay Speedy Gonzalez Saunders, or at least that's what my last lover called me. Hi, guys.
I like how my name makes me feel like some sort of STD as well.
But even more exciting, we're joined by our dear friend and mentor, the man who put prostitute into pro-comedian, put the tut into tutor, the dick into dictator, and the fun into fundamentalist. It's the one, the only, Mr. Jay Sodigar. Hi, Jay.
Bless you. Hello. You missed one. You missed one. I put the turd in Saturday as well. That's not my joke, unfortunately, but that is a classic. There you go. Yes, it's great. It's great to be here. I love this podcast. I'm loving this. I was in Brighton, going up to Brighton over the course of this weekend, and it's like from where I live to Brighton, it's about a good 2-hour journey. So I listened to the last podcast for an hour and a half. Wow, I love this podcast. It just gets better and better each time. So thank you for having me back.
You just love the sultry sounds of our voices, isn't it?
I wasn't slow at the weekend. I wish every time I visited, but it doesn't.
I was going to ask Jake before we actually get into the body of this podcast. You just mentioned you were in Brighton. You did the Fringe Festival. It's the first time you've done a full-length show in a while. How was it?
Yes, it's my first full-length show in 7 years. All right, I've done loads before. But what happened was I've done 13 full-length solo shows, and this will be my 14th. And I had like a 7-year gap in between all of this. And
how long? Sorry to just jump in. How long is like a full-length show?
An hour. And I think what it was for me, I got a bit complacent with stand-up. And like, you know, when you're kind of on the club circuit, you knock out your 20 minutes or your half an hour, you kind of get paid and then that's it. And then during COVID, I missed stand-up, massively missed it. And I went through this huge creative writing spurt, which I hadn't really experienced for ages. And that's not a euphemism for wanking, by the way. A huge creative spurt just came out. But what happened was like as soon as lockdown started to open up, I was like, no, I have to go to Edinburgh. So I went to Brighton to do like some previews, and I loved it. I felt like I was a young man again, doing an hour show and like writing it all from scratch. I loved it. The audience got the creative spurt as well. That's not another euphemism of wanking all over the audience.
I remember when I was a young man, I could last an hour. Oh, comedy.
There's been a big thing about the royals feeling quite young, or feeling quite young
Right.
people.
And Andrew's always felt young people, apparently.
It's always the thing as well.
Apparently not. Apparently not. He just pays 12 million quid to think that he's actually dealt with young people.
No sweat.
I had a friend recently going about like, why is this big thing about like Prince Andrew being a nonce? Like when Michael Jackson's been being a nonce for years. It was just like, yeah, but Michael Jackson like released bangers. Like, if Prince Andrew did something that could make me like, the shower less like less emotional, I'll be more into it. But as it is, nothing. So,
could you imagine that Prince Andrew at Wembley Stadium? All these girls.
Yeah, but it's just the level of acceptability. It's just like, oh yeah, I can listen to Man in the Mirror while I'm having a fucking cry in the shower about being bummed by Michael Jackson. It kind of makes it more acceptable.
You can't do the same thing or Save the Queen, can you?
This is why I love this podcast. This is why I love this podcast.
More of a thriller that it gave, or bad in my case.
And then I'm gonna do my plug. I'm gonna do my plug again. Well, not so much a plug because it will have been over and done with my bit of news.
Yeah.
I've got my first ever paying gig. It's only a 5 minutes, but I've got my first ever paying gig.
This is beautiful.
Everyone turn up, all of you, every single one of you, even the professionals. Professionals that have a fucking tally on who can say cunt quicker.
So after patting myself up. Cheers. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be the first time I've ever performed in a venue where they get charged to walk in through the door. They're paying between £5 and £7 on that, per person to come in. And okay, it's only a tenner for doing a 5 set, but it's still a tenner. It's the first time somebody's given me something for it, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's like it takes sometimes quite a few years before people go on to paid gigs. My first paid gig was in 1999, and I started in 1996. It took me 3 years before I got a paid gig. You've been doing this how long now? Was it about a year? Or
I joined the army in 1999. Me and you were getting paid at the same time. Just a different shit.
But I've been on the physical circuit rather than Zoom. I've been on the physical circuit for 8 months.
8 months. 8 months. I'm not bitter. I'm just saying.
I've done one physical gig.
He goes first paid gig within 8 months. Fuck you, Jake.
I mean, let's be blunt about it, Jay. You're a fantastic teacher, but you must be a shit student.
I've done one physical gig, but obviously being a Catholic fellow who got raised in the 80s, my blowjob technique is amazing.
Now that took me at least 4 years before I could.
Oh man, honestly, it's like a salt and pepper grinder in my place. Honestly, I do everything.
Again, I love this podcast. I love this podcast because who would have thought this was not in the plan? By the way, we actually have a little plan. This was not in the plan.
I certainly haven't made a note of any of this.
If I don't look like I've been blinded by Spider-Man within 2 minutes, I'm disappointed.
Dave Murphy's one-man show in the confessional box, and your pay was a whole bag of Werther's original.
The confessional box, it was called. When I was there.
I'm just so glad we don't show the video to any of our listeners, because at this precise moment I'm just trying to work. My face would expose. How the hell am I going to segue into talking about one-liners after we've had Gabe's Spider-Man face? I mean, how do I?
Obviously, it's only from the cheeks up. I don't want to get the hair matted.
What hair?
Go on, I'm going to be the boring host. I'm going to be the boring host.
Yeah, obviously. Fuck's sake. Come on, Jay. What the hell, man? You can fucking see me.
That's true. That's true. I thought. This is not why my hair is white, by the way. This is not why.
Just leftover jizz.
I haven't suddenly become Catholic. It's like, how did we get here? I have no idea. How on earth did we get here?
I'm not going old. It's just leftover jizz.
Let's do the subject matter because I know Gabe will take us to the darker places as we continue. Do not worry, I am not stopping Gabe from his darkness and spunk jokes.
I have no idea what you mean. I am offended at your accusation.
But how would we define what is a one-liner? What is a one-liner compared to the other kind of jokes out there?
Well, from my perspective, as a comic, a one-liner, by pure definition, is a one-line setup, one-line punchline. But having said that, I've met loads of other people who redefine that. And some people would say a one-liner is literally just one line, which is a punchline. Others would actually like put puns as one-liners. Others would kind of say any joke that's got one line setup, one line punchline. I'm always fascinated by this because, like, I always thought that say like a comic like Stephen Wright, I never thought was really a one-liner comic. He speaks setups and punchlines right the way through, but they're not puns. They are jokes that are actually written.
Yeah.
Gary Delaney does puns. So I sat there and thought that's a one-liner comedian. But then you've got your Tim Vines and you've got Milton Joneses and all them, and your Jimmy Carrs and all of that. That just literally just write random jokes about any subject and so on and so forth. So I'm always fascinated. Like, how would you guys define a one-liner?
I think with the one-liner side of it, it's like the minimal setup and then punchline. But then you can have like a rolling one-liner, so it's like a setup, a punchline, bang, a punchline, bang, punchline, bang.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that on my intermediate.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with myself, and I don't know whether it was Zoom. Or,
it could be.
Or me just not hitting it. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
personally, I didn't feel it. Well.
The example that I used in the intermediate course. This was a joke I wrote, and I think Jay will know this. Jamie, you're doing the intermediate course soon, so just as a quick reminder, it's on June 25th. There you go.
Prepare yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is not sponsored by Laughing Horse Comedy. We will eventually get them.
You've never been fingered till you've been fingered over the internet by Jay Sodigar. There's a reason why he's called Sodigar.
Oh, can we please change the name of your Facebook group to I've Been Fingered?
Yeah. Sodomy is in his name.
I might get a whole new group of people trying to subscribe to this thing.
Jay, I'm interested in your course. What are you interested in your stand-up? Right? No.
The only man that advertises on OnlyFans.
Interested in getting done by your course.
So do you finger them to stand up? Is that what it is? So they can't.
The only way I stand up these days.
Is that the difference between the beginners and the intermediate? It's just how
the fingering.
That's
fingering.
Advanced, mate. That's very advanced.
No, the advanced would be the fisting.
The full 5 fingers. That's
the one-liner.
I'm planning on trying to do another course on top of that, which is double fisting. But I got a name. I might call it a platinum jubilee. I don't know.
That's where I control your eye movements, your ear movements, your mouth movements, and your head movement.
And each one of us veterans wants a campaign. Each one of us veterans wants a campaign medal for each one of the courses we've done.
Rod Hull's got fuck all on Jay Sodigar.
the next course. Let's shove a TV aerial up there. Let's see how that works.
Apparently the reception is shitty.
That was 10 years ago. He's dead. But
You missed me line. Apparently the reception is shitty.
now, very loosely going back to one-liners, some people might assume that this is one line. See what I did there? I'm so slick at this. I'm so slick.
Hey, you're so good. We need you more.
But no,
it's almost like you're a professional.
I've done one paid 5-minute gig. That's all I've done. That's all. I've dined out on that for decades. I have.
Mate, you wouldn't believe the amount of dicks I had to suck to get a 1 paid 5-minute.
It took me 3 years. It took me 3 years.
Tell you what, the only place I can get a paid gig is the Vatican.
So one-liners. That's it. My point being is, I remember in the intermediate course, I used this as an example. It's a joke that started off as a one-liner, but then, like Gabe said, I just added punchlines to it. So I don't know whether it's still defined as a one-liner or now something else. But the joke is, for everyone else, is Virgin trains are always late because they're exactly like Virgins. They're just waiting for the right time. I got onto one train. I got onto one train halfway through the journey. Train stopped for no reason at all. Didn't want to go all the way. Finally got to the end destination. Train doors wouldn't even open. Right? Didn't want to let me go. I had to spend 2 hours cuddling the driver before I could get off the fucker. Now the train follows me everywhere I go. If you go outside and see the 1422 to Birmingham, it's for me. Tell it I'm not interested. Tell it I'm not interested. It said single on the ticket very clearly. Now, I'm a bit confused. I don't know whether that's still a one-liner or whether that's now just a routine story with just 2 lines of setup in it. I don't know. What would you? I'm fascinated by what people would see.
I think it's a setup and then a series of one-liners because they're not. You're accelerating to the punchline. You're bringing the funny fast, and that's what one-liner comedians do. Is they bring the funny fast like a machine gun.
Yeah. No, so it's technically still it's a series of one-liners, but all about one subject. There you go. I could go with that. I could go with that.
See, for me, I'm more of a I'm really like in a box about stuff. So I think like in a Gary Delaney kind of way, a setup and a punchline, and then that's your one line, and then next one, setup, punchline, setup, punchline, setup, punchline. There you one liners.
Yeah, but then again, you can turn around to Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr talked about it in an interview once. He went, the shortest joke he's ever written was literally a one-liner, which was dwarf shortage.
Yeah.
It is straight. You didn't even need the setup. It's just straight there with the wordplay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then it's like, would that land everywhere? Do you know?
That's true. If it's got minimum amounts of information, it's down to how much attention the audience have picked up, because that's 2 words. If they missed the first word, the second word's then lost. He just said shortage. I don't know what he meant by that. First one, dwarfs. I don't know what he means by this, but yeah.
I can see going over a few people's heads though.
Yeah. I will set this now.
The dwarfs. The dwarfs. Yeah.
I fucking love dwarfs. I think they're fucking amazing. Honestly,
we've entered Gabe's comedy cul-de-sac.
No, it's not even a comedy thing. Honestly, I think they're fucking fantastic.
Because they all look up to you.
No, it's not.
Oh God!
I remember I saw a dwarf who was working in a gym once, and he came out the back of the gym, walking a wheelie bin up the way. But he wasn't walking it like everyone else does. He was like walking in front of it, pulling it over his head.
Mm-hmm.
and it was just it was the best thing I ever saw in my life.
That's a workout in itself. That's a workout.
And then, as a paramedic, I was coming out of Manchester. I don't know. Are we allowed to say it? Fuck it. I was coming out of Manchester Royal Infirmary, and I saw a dwarf riding a regular size bike. You have honestly never experienced joy until you have seen a dwarf ride a regular size bike. Without a word of a lie, I nearly crashed fucking 5 times in the space of 20. In the space of 20 meters, nearly crashed 5 times in a fucking ambulance. Trying my best not to fucking cry with laughter, watching a dwarf ride a regular fucking size bike. I don't know how I'm going to get that into a one-liner. Don't overly care. Don't overly care. It was fucking amazing.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look at some of the guys and girls on the circuit that are experts at one-liners, and look at some of their one-liners and see what it is, because it's not just puns, is it? I mean, we've already said about Jimmy. Jimmy is famous for his routines. It is, you know, he tries to write 300 new jokes for each show and what have you. For example, this one is a pun, a very famous one. A snake bite isn't going to kill you, unless, of course, you're allergic to cider. That one went down so well in that particular DVD record is because of that lady that didn't get the joke. Yeah. And the fact he was able to deconstruct the joke and explain what a setup and a punchline was, you know, the fastest way to tell 2 opposing stories. But not every one of his jokes is a pun, is it?
I remember, because I know Jimmy from a long time ago when he first started, and I remember I loved one of his jokes. It's now a bit of an old classic that you probably have all heard of now. One of his jokes was, I gave a homeless man 50p for a cup of tea, and I never got that tea. It's just a joke. I like the joke in the fact that because the concept underneath it that is just exposed in 2 lines. I love it. I love that kind of stuff.
I like the Milton Jones and the Garrett Delaney.
Garrett Delaney.
Kind of setups. The main one I can always remember about Milton Jones was when he was going on about his other grandfather. My other grandfather died in fucking wherever, and he said another joke.
And then suddenly he's got 7 grandfathers.
Like 7 lines down the line. He's like, my other grandfather. He's like, fucking, you've got 7 other grandfathers. It was brilliant. I loved it. Loved doing that.
But the one because everybody accuses Milton of often being a pun meister. But what I love from him, and I just think this is, okay, it's in 3 parts. It's in 3 parts, but I love it because it shows he's not a pun meister and sometimes does take it to the edge. It's sort of like militant feminists. I take my hat off to them. They don't like that.
Yeah, this again, like, if you look at these one-liners, they actually go through a very complex concept, but do it literally in 2 lines or 1 line in itself. It's a very there's an art form to all of this, in the fact that even if you watch like Stephen Wright, like all the jokes are literally cut down to their barest minimum amounts of information, and there's very complex concepts that go on underneath it, but everyone gets it literally in the briefest bits of information.
Because I like, I think that's one of the reasons why I like Gary Delaney so much, is he jumped to dark so quickly from a really innocuous punchline setup. Sorry, so the really famous one. I filled the escort with diesel. She died. You can go from something so innocuous to so dark in such a beat.
Yeah. No,
he still owes me for that escort.
She was a dwarf. My favorite Gary Delaney joke, that anytime I've ever gigged with him, I've told him that this is my favorite joke, and he will always open the show with it. it's a pun where he goes, I joined Amnesty International the other day. It was buy one, set one free. Just the concept of people understanding what Amnesty International is, and then the punchline and the offer and the language in it. It's a beautiful joke. It's a beautiful joke.
The other one I like is the fact
I've never heard that one before.
I mean, and even with puns, it can be very clever. I mean, so the pun meister himself, he ended up doing an entire show called the Pun Slinger. You know, Tim Vine.
Yeah.
He won Gag of the Year at Edinburgh with, and I love this because I think it's so clever, conjunctivitis.com. There's a site for sore eyes. It's a pure pun. It's a pure pun.
Yeah.
But it's so clever in its construction.
Yeah. There is an art form to one-liners. There is an absolute art form to one-liners. I remember one of my favorite jokes. Now, basically, I'm just dishing out all material that I've dropped ages ago, but I can't fucking use it now, so I'm just going to do it.
Plug yourself, Jay.
No, I remember. I used to do this joke, and again, it started off as a one-liner, and then I just added to it as this news story. It's about the Iraq War, and it started off with Britain and America went to war with Iraq based on one report of weapons of mass destruction. One. Now, if you apply for a part-time job at Tesco's, even they ask for 2 references. Right? And then the whole thing about Dr. Kelly kicked off. And the whole government thing there was like, Dr. Kelly was the whistleblower, but the government didn't want to admit it. But they said if the media mentioned his name, they wouldn't deny it. Now, to me, that sounds like a big game of guess who. Government on one end, media on the other, media on the phone going, has he got a beard? Yes. Does he wear glasses? Yes. Is it Dr. Kelly? Fucking obvious. To me, the whole thing is just Hutton dressed as Sham. And that's the only pun I ever had with him. I was very proud of that pun. I had 2 Jaffa cakes after I wrote that joke. And that's what I do. That's what I do whenever I write a good joke. And you've seen how big I am. I write a lot of good jokes.
And you mentioned Steve,
that we don't know what you call Jaffa cakes. You dirty bastard.
That took me 4 years.
One of my favourites from dear old Steve Wright was, and again, it's going back to this point of it doesn't necessarily need a setup, but you have to think. And Steve was one of those thinkers, comedians. But the one I loved was half the people you know are below average, and you sit there going, hang on a second, he's right. And it's funny, but he's absolutely right. Technically, half of them have to be below average. That's the way the world works.
Again, I've written loads and loads of one-liners in my time, and I'm in absolute awe of loads and loads of comedians that just come up with just beautiful jokes like that. And it's just, part of me is always sits there and goes, is a one-liner really just a very, very mini routine that is literally just 2 lines? And sometimes you can extrapolate it, and like as we covered in the intermediate course, you can just add more punchlines, like I did with the Virgin Trains joke, as it were. But yeah, no, I mean, all these. Stuart Francis is another one.
Oh.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes it's the pun, sometimes it's the 2 I will always remember from Stuart are I'm a very proud Canadian, very proud of the education system in Canada. Lovely. But my favorite, just halfway through a set, he just suddenly looks at the audience and says, did I already tell my Alzheimer's joke? The way, no setup required.
Yeah. No, awesome. No, I love it. What
we'll do for 1 second is we'll just take a little pause and we'll show you how you can end up joining Project Comedy.
Are you a veteran or even still serving and think you'd like to give stand-up comedy a go? Then why not join us in Project Comedy? Visit the Project Recce website, that's projectrecce.org, then click on how it works. You'll find a Register Here button in the Project Comedy section. Fill that in and the HQ staff will soon get you connected with the Project Comedy community and its weird and wonderful ambassadors. You'll be invited to our green rooms, where if you want it, we can train you in the basics. If not, you can just come along and have a laugh with us and see what we're up to and what it gives us.
We want to get some one-liners. Is it a different technique for writing them? I mean, how the hell do you end up writing one-liners?
It's an art form. Some people's brains are conditioned in a way of where they actually look at a particular phrase or a sentence or a word, and they actually are able to just deconstruct that word and sometimes just change one letter of it to change the meaning of it. And then suddenly turn that into, let's say, like a pun. And others, they're more kind of conceptual, where they actually think up of a concept in a phrase or a sentence and then go, how can I change the meaning of that to something else? Like I've written with Gary before. I've spent ages, because he started out, you know, pretty much soon after I started out. And when you're kind of new comedians gigging around on the circuit, you kind of get to know how other comics work as well and how they write stuff. And for me, I'm not a one-liner comic, but I sat there in awe just watching him at a gig start at 7 o'clock and then just write 10 jokes before the start of the show at 8 o'clock and use them in his set. It's a phenomenal thing. It really is.
I had a bit of an experiment last night because, again, I've never really done one-liners. I have sort of like written jokes that by the editing process, I've ended up editing them down to become a one-liner. So an example of that, when I trimmed down my Tinder gag, it's sort of like Gosport. You open Tinder in Gosport and you think you're playing Pokemon Go. That went from being a much longer joke into becoming a one-liner by trimming out the stuff that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
But last night I thought, I'm going to try and write some one-liners, some pure dedicated one-liners. And all I did was I looked up a list of homonyms.
Yeah.
And then just went, are there anything in these homonyms that will end up leading me into a punchline? The one that you liked, Gabe, I'm trying to find it in my list here, was
I'm still thinking I'm still thinking there's a social justice warrior out there offended that you've used the word homonym. What are their pronouns?
Homonym.
But yeah, so for example, one I came up with was, did you hear about the guy that was arrested for bestiality that was altruistic? It was just you.
I do like that.
So yeah, there I was looking at this homonym for you as in YOU and EWE, and I just went, okay, can I make a joke out of that? And in the space of 2 hours, just looking at homonyms, I wrote 41 liners.
Wow. You got to do some. You got to give us more examples.
Oh God! Well, Gabe, you listened to them before. Which are the ones you liked? Otherwise, I'm going to bore everybody.
Oh jeez, you're making me remember shit now.
The last date I went on was a musical adventure. We struck a chord. She tried to hang me. I'm trying to. This one's not quite a one-liner. It needs trimming, but I like it. I asked my mate why he dumped his girlfriend. He said, choose a cock. I said, what? Does she bite you when giving you a blowjob? He said, no, she couldn't choose between his dick and the rest of the dicks in the rugby club.
What was it? You might have to edit this out, babe, because I remember you said something and I was like, oh, you could go somewhere else with it.
Oh, I've got the other one. At my age, you'll relate to this, Jay. Now you've just had your birthday.
Yeah.
At my age, I have a Welsh penis. It leaks a lot.
I was wrong. Would you mind editing it out that I don't sound like a fucking knobhead by the way. Hard, I know. But
you have to go through all the other 12 episodes.
like every single bit of me is just edited out.
And then there was just one that it's a twist on something else. It just ended up being a couple of words, which was suicides for quitters.
Or cheaters, shortcuts.
But it was a really interesting exercise just to sit with a list of homonyms and going, is there anything in this? And then it started taking me on to, as you teach in the intermediate course, you could then push the logic with it to go, right, where can I take that particular punchline?
Yeah, no. Look, writing comedy is a phenomenal process, and people's brains are conditioned in all sorts of different ways. Like sometimes when you're at the pub with your friends, and there's always that guy who always thinks up of puns as you're doing it, and after a while it's a bit annoying at first, and then you actually get into it and just piss yourself laughing at everything he then says. And I saw this. I remember. This is a Tim Vine story. This was years ago before he was famous, right? And I was a punter. I was an audience member. I wasn't even in comedy at the time, but I went to go and see a show at the Comedy Store, and he was headlining it, right? Now, basically, they have 4 acts on at the Comedy Store. The first act was a straight observational comedian. The second act was a straight observational comedian. The third act was a straight observational comedian. And then Tim Vine, who just does puns, was closing.
Yep.
And what happened was, and the audience loved the entire night. They were up here. They were like proper level 10 audience. They loved every part of it, laughed everything. And then when Tim Vine came on, he started doing puns. And you could almost palpably hear the audience go, school kid joke, right? And within about 2 minutes of Tim Vine going on stage, all he did, same kind of gag rate, just silly pun after silly pun after silly pun after silly pun after silly pun. The audience just went from level 10 to like level 2. They're like, this is just kids jokes, right? And this is before he was famous for doing one-liners and puns.
Yeah.
And he never stopped. He never stopped. He just carried on going. Any other comic would have gone, I've lost the room. I have to do something to get the room back. He did not stop. Silly pun after silly pun after silly pun after silly. And after about another minute, this room had literally just gone down to level 0. They literally just started chatting amongst themselves, right? But he did not stop. This like 4th minute now. Silly pun after silly pun. Did not stop to just chat to the audience to try and get that. Nothing. Silly pun after silly pun. And then what happened was there were a couple of like groups in the audience that started to kind of patronize him a little bit. And then when like Tim would finish a joke, they'll go, "Way!" like this, right? And he played up to it. So he then did more silly puns.
Yeah.
And then another group of people, they started to join and go, "Way!" And then within about 2 more minutes, it became infectious right around the room. 500 people at the Comedy Store, after every one of his jokes, went, "Way!" And then they suddenly enjoyed it. And then he did about another 15 minutes and he walked off to an encore. And this is a guy who literally lost the room within the first like 4 minutes. He lost them completely to suddenly have an encore at the end of it. And when the compere came back on, they like the 500 people at the Comedy Store did not want him. So the compere tried to do a bit of a joke, a normal kind of joke, an observational joke. They didn't want to do it. They started shouting out puns to this guy's joke. So eventually they brought Tim back on. He then came back on, did another 10 minutes of this, and absolutely stormed the place. It was amazing to watch. And now this is an interesting part of the story, right? When I was sitting there watching this, I thought, this is phenomenal, right? How on earth did that happen? Then years and years and years later, when I became a professional comic, I was gigging with Tim Vine, right? And I asked him, right? Because like any other comic I know would have folded under the pressure. I've lost the room. I need to do something to get the room back. And I wanted to ask him, it's like, do you remember this gig that you did at the Comedy Store? You literally lost the entire room within the first 4 minutes, but you then managed to get them back. And this was before he was famous and everything, right? And he said, that's how it always used to be. Because what I do is very different to what all the other comics were doing. The only difference is I know, like, I've got such a high gag rate and such a high punchline rate that I will machine gun them and I'll beat them into submission. And
machine pun them.
Yes, exactly. Machine pun them, right. And
Mr. Jamie Johnson, ladies and gentlemen.
He's back in the room. He's back in the room.
I will finger blast them into submission.
But the thing is because he's got so many of these, and like literally because he just hits them with so many punchlines. Literally in a minute, he can hit about 15 to 20 jokes, and after a while, he'll beat them into submission to a point that like they just succumb to it. And then after that, they're in the groove. The exact same thing as that guy in the pub who just does puns, and then after a little bit, it's annoying, and then after a while, yeah, you just join in. And it's exactly like that. And it's a phenomenal connection tool. It's a phenomenal connection way on how he got that room. He knew he was going to lose them, but he knew he was going to get them back as well, just because he was doing a different style. And I found that fascinating.
The only thing that I can liken that to is when I've been at Download, I've got a very good friend who just hackles the fire marshals. So when they come around and checking, making sure that everyone is safe, he stands up and goes, "Do some fucking work." And then all of a sudden, these people are just getting harassed by a load of people just shouting at them to do some fucking work. That's our mate Joe over in Germany, by the way. Hey Joe.
And yes, I saw on our stats we have got German listeners now.
Yeah, that's Joe.
Just the one. And I also like the technique. Now he
slag and spread it about, doesn't he? Like a slag. Really.
I also like the writing technique that Dave Chappelle talks about in his last special, where he's got a punchline jar. So he doesn't actually write the jar. What he's got is a jar that has just got punchlines in it. And then goes back to it every now and again and go, right, what's the fastest way I can get to this punchline? And I think I'm going to end up building a list of that, going, yeah, when I'm bored or stuck on a train or waiting to see the psychiatrist, I can sit there with my phone going, that's the punchline, how do I get to it fast?
Yeah,
it might be a fun little thing to kill a bit of time with.
Yeah. No. I remember.
Like reverse punchline setup.
Yeah. Because I there's a comic called Robin Ince, who I remember seeing many years ago, and he had this. He was doing 20 minutes, and his last 3 minutes were like, "I've got so many jokes, but I've only got 3 minutes left, so I won't be able to do the setup. So I'll just do the punchlines." And all he then did is just said these very spurious things, and you can see the audience trying to work out the setup for him. And it was just a genius thing to get the audience to do all of that. And he planted the seed by giving them the punchline. And it was beautiful to watch. It was lovely.
Because oh God, what's his name? The Bristol comedian, Russell Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that. So he used to do a sketch about random things he overheard on bus journeys. And he said, and you want to know what the conversation was before it. So he was traveling on a bus through Bristol and he overheard two girls talking, and one said to the other, "Its penis was so big, I nearly phoned you." Now, you don't need a setup for that. It's just sort of like, what was the conversation that came before it?
It's self-referential. Everything, all the information is already there. You're just curious about what on earth got to that point, which you don't even need, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. Just that statement on its own.
What would you so thinking about it? I mean, I think we all need some degree of one-liners in our sets and what have you. But are there advantages and disadvantages to using or overusing one-liners?
It can be. I mean, I've noticed like sometimes when you do one-liners, you kind of get pigeonholed into just going into one-liners, and sometimes from an audience's perspective, very similar to the Tim Vine story, if the audience got used to someone kind of telling a bit of a story or doing some sort of like political satire or whatever it is, to then kind of doing pun jokes, as it were, and it's a different form than everybody else, it kind of goes downhill very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was only like someone as confident as Tim Vine went, no, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to win you over. And he just kept going. And he did it. Other comics would fail. And I've seen it. I've seen comics sit there and kind of go, you're just not going for this. So they lose interest in how to like deliver their jokes. So they just do it kind of switched off. And the audience are now picked up that you're not interested. I'm not interested. Let's just wait 4.5 minutes.
There's a guy on my local circuit that's very much that, and he just plods on through. He's very much the one-liner pun comedian, but what he does is he intersperses it with random bizarre little songs he's written, very much like Tim Vine. Right. But it ends up becoming, he does pun after pun after pun, and it's getting moderate giggles. Time for a song, and then that moves on. Then it suddenly becomes the punchline that the audience love. Goes, time for a song, and they all cheer when he comes to a new song. But it takes him 3 to 4 minutes of his 10 set to warm the audience up to go, yay, here comes the silly song, la la la, here comes the song.
No, like I was I remember going to Edinburgh, this is quite a few years ago, and I walked in to kind of see this show. A mate of mine said, oh, you should see this guy. He just does one-liners, but he's only got 10 minutes, right? But he's going to do an hour on his own, right? So we kind of sat there and thought, oh, all right, and fair enough then. Let's see what this is. For about the first 10 minutes, brilliant one-liners, right? And then it was like literally the Z grade material. 50 minutes. So for the first 10 minutes, everyone went, oh, this is actually quite funny. Oh, it's really good. I was like, okay, all right then, all right, fair enough. Okay, all right. Okay. When does this show finish?
And I suppose that's going to be one of the big disadvantages, isn't it? It's the quantity of jokes you need to prepare to fill a set. If you're just doing one-liners, I mean, like we were saying about Jimmy Carr's ambition is to write 300 new jokes for a show. That the concept of writing that many for a show terrifies the living daylights out of me.
Yeah. And that too, different jokes as well. Not like, oh, okay, I'll just slightly change this one. It's a whole new thing. Yeah, no, it's fun. I remember I actually went to go and watch Stephen Wright when he came to London. And he's another one of these one-liner comics who does not break. He does not start chatting to the audience. He doesn't do anything. Literally just one line after one line after one liner. And it's fair to say after about half an hour, my brain literally turned to cheese because I was like, his voice is very sort of like low grade and very monotonous and all of this.
Yep.
In a thick.
Which is why he was in The Usual Suspects. Was it The Usual Suspects? No.
Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was
the radio guy.
The radio guy. Yeah. But literally, it's like after about 40 minutes, it's like I can't concentrate on this because the voice is so low down, so
monotonous.
And there is slight changes in terms of performances, but they're so subtle that you have to stay very focused on it as an audience, and you get it. And like after about 30 or 40 minutes, he then said, "You're bored now, aren't you? Let's do a song." And he did this low grade song for about a minute, and then he puts down and goes, "More jokes," and then just carried on going. And if we didn't do that song, the audience would have literally fallen asleep by that point. But it's a phenomenal thing to watch. It really is.
The advantages that I was thinking of for myself last night, one is technical and one is social, if you like. The technical one is by having a few one-liners in your arsenal, the speed of connection. If you've got some really good one-liners you can open your set with and get them laughing within the first 10, 15 seconds of a set, oh yeah, you're here, rather than. And I've seen so many guys, new guys on the circuit, they're waiting at least a minute before they get their first laugh, and you feel pain for them.
That's a long time.
But it is. 60 seconds is a huge amount of time. But to be able to get a laugh within the first 10 seconds, my God, you feel so much better, and the audience is with you. The social one, when I tell people that I do stand-up, they go, well, tell us a joke then. If you don't have a one-liner, you can't go, but that's not the way comedy works. Actually, having a couple of one-liners to prove to people you are doing stand-up comedy, that's bloody useful in that precise moment.
It is, yes. No. I hate that question. I fucking hate that question.
Any time anyone says, like, oh, tell me a joke, I just go, my sex life. If you don't like it, fucking live it.
I've started to sort of like the last dinner party I went to was very posh. My wife's so middle class, it's unbelievable. We went to a dinner party.
Upper middle class, darling. Upper middle class.
Of course, yeah. I think the only reason why my wife married me is because I'm a comedian. She's an accountant. She's kind of gone, let me piss my dad off. I know what will piss him off. I'm a comedian. I'm that guy.
You accountant too, comedian.
Yes, exactly. It's the only bit of credibility I had, I think. I think that's the only bit. But
do you feel like fucking the effective bit of like merman?
Yeah.
A merman. I was a merman.
But like nowadays at dinner parties, whenever someone kind of goes, oh, you're a comedian, are you? In that little fucking patronizing tone, you're a comedian. It's almost like short of air quote. Are you?
Yeah.
Are you? Tell us a joke right now. Come on, clown boy. Come on, tell me a joke. And it's like I've now started to go, oh well, so I don't really tell jokes. I kind of patronize people. Do you know what patronize mean? If not, I'll explain to you. And then I follow it up with, not everyone finds it funny, especially you. Everybody else finds this hilarious. It's just they're not here right now. That's it. But yeah, because I think if you ask any comedian, that's usually that one question that's always annoying. And there's that routine that like loads of comics go. It's like if you're any other job, no one would ever ask you for a sample. If you're a gynecologist, no one would go, yeah, go on then.
I'm paramedic, yeah. Let's see you do some CPR, mate.
You're a suicide bomber, are you? Go on,
then. To be going through those two occupations. Here we are starting out as comics, and they're going to ask us, "Oh, tell us a joke then." But you tell them you're a veteran. What's the first question they ask? How many people have you killed? I just went for stand-up now.
I hate that thing. The most embarrassing time that I got asked that question as well is like in 2003. I was coming back from Iraq after having fucking like a big contact and stuff. I got flown back early. I was in the same clothes that I was in for the last like fucking 2 weeks. I had blood on me, sweat on me. It was horrible, right? Got back to base after being flown from Iraq in a fucking Hercules, which took forever. And anyone who's listening to this, by the way, a Hercules is basically the Skoda, the old Skoda of the
There's a reason they call it the Fat Albert. That's all I'm saying.
It roughly somehow manages to go 30 miles an hour. And I eventually get back to the UK, and then I find out that the fella who's got the room key with all of my gear in and my car keys and everything, he's fucked off away, and we've just got brand new accommodation, like Z type accommodation. So it was like, mate, you're not kicking that door in. I'll give you a fucking train ticket to go home. I was like, oh, Nice one. Cheers. I stink. I'm covered in blood and piss and shit and everything. But yeah, whatever. My mum's living in Merseyside, right? So I'm coming into the last change, the last stop just before Liverpool Lime Street. And these Scouse kids come up to me and go, and I'm there wearing all of my army gear, like all of my desert army gear, covered in blood and piss and shit. And they go, "Oh, mate, are you in the army?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." "Oh, have you been to Iraq and that?" Like, yeah, I'm literally covered in sand. I'm tanned and everything. Yeah. "Oh, have you shot any packies?" I was like, technically no. How do you like, do I educate them on the fact that I was shooting Iraqis, not Pakis? Or do I educate them on the fact that Paki is a bit of a derogatory term? Or do I educate them on the fact that maybe after shooting some cunts, I don't want to fucking talk about shooting cunts? As it was, I just said, maybe you should pay for your fucking train ticket. Because they got fucking kicked off.
Once again, I stare at the screen and go, how the fuck do I bring this back to one-liners?
No, technically, they were fucking 4 one-liners. So fuck you. But that was a true story.
Brilliant.
I really hope that those lads on that train like became public office people.
Or at least paid for a train ticket.
they're now like members of parliament for fucking Green Lane or something like that.
They're now Boris Johnson's security advisors.
No, they're foreign relation people. Oh, Boris, you can call them Packies, it's great. How can you have a vote of confidence of some cunt who can't even fucking count his hair?
He can't even count the number of kids he's got, so how can he be sure of the votes he's got?
He probably got his kids to vote for him in. Got enough of them. He's got enough of them.
You need some body form because that gives you confidence every time you go out.
I mean, how many kids has he got? Like, I'm amazed he's got one.
Well, apparently 211 Tory MPs voted for him and 148 voted against him. So I'm guessing 211 kids.
I can't believe that there's a woman there stupid enough to say, "Ah, yeah, go on then, put a baby."
A smart, intelligent, attractive woman looked at Boris Johnson's fat, ugly, naked, sweaty body, looked at it and went,
This is why there should be a consensus, right? At the GP, if you're pregnant and you think you know who that fucking father is, you go to the doctor and just say, "Oh yeah, the dad's fucking Boris Johnson." A shot there. There's two fucking absolute mongos. Just out of life. Done.
Yeah.
Dusted. Just fucking dust them.
Oh, I know Johnson's a popular name. I didn't realise he was the reason it was so popular.
Mate, if I was you, I wouldn't do that fucking "where's my family from" bullshit.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, who do you think you are? Who do you not want to be?
Put in the Johnson into Johnson.
Then Jamie Johnson himself.
I can see it now. Jamie's the only bloke that goes on to "who do you think you are?" and he's desperately hoping he's related to Hitler. Instead,
She's like,
Everybody,
please let me be able to call me kid Adolf. Oh, just please. Unironically, just let it happen.
we've got good news for you, Jamie. We've actually found out you're descended from Fred West. It's better. It's better than the way it was going to go.
Oh, there's Jamie. Phew. Finally. I'm all right now. I'm okay. I don't have to carry shame.
I was like, oh, I can actually go back to my family name of West. Literally edited.
Reminds me of one liner I was writing last night, because you know the Me Too thing and what have you that's been going on, and the hashtag Believe Women. And I went, what? All of them? Like, Rose West. Yeah. Amber Heard.
Amber Heard.
I fucking hate Amber Heard. I really do. The whole bullshit of that.
Sir for 15 million. Sir for 15 million. I'll watch it.
If only I could. Like, and in fairness, if I won 15 million, I'd probably be dead in a year. Because the amount of fun I would have if on 15 million quid. Oh,
what I do for 15 at the moment.
Apparently do 5 minutes. There you go. I think one-liners are great.
So hopefully we've given you an idea of what one-liners are, where they can be useful. Doesn't mean you have to be a one-liner comedian, but having some in your arsenal can actually take you to places. But I've got to thank all of our guests, being Gabe Murphy, Jamie Johnson, and of course the one, the only Mr. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
Love you.
And it's been great to have you here on this particular episode, Jay, because this is the end of season 1. Some of us actually need to have a life, so we're going to take a couple of weeks off, start planning for season 2, which will kick off in 4 weeks' time. So that will start back season 2 on the 20th of July. But until next time, keep on following us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on the Facebook group. We'll send you some links at the end of this episode. But we'll see you all in season 2.
Cheerio.
Yeah.
If you want to see what we're actually like on stage, please have a look at our YouTube channel. Search for Project Comedy, Veterans Doing Stand-Up, and look for our black and white logo that's exactly the same as the one we use for this podcast. You can also now follow us on Twitter. We can be found at Proj Comedy. That's at PROJ Comedy. I'm E.J. Saunders. I can be found on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter if you look for Comic J Saunders. That's all one word with the letter J in the middle. Comic J Saunders. Thanks again to everyone that's taken part in this episode. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Project Comedy Podcast. Please support our veterans as they continue their comedy journeys. To find out more, including gigs our veterans are doing, please search for the Project Comedy group on Facebook, where you'll also find links to Project Recce, the veterans charity that makes Project Comedy possible.